Hello and welcome to Federal. Dalai Lama, the exiled spiritual leader of Tibet, confirmed on July 2nd that there will be a successor to him after his death, adding that the 600-year-old tradition of Dalai Lama will continue. Reacting to Dalai Lama's statement, China said that the spiritual guru's reincarnation can only be approved by the Chinese government and that the process will take place in China itself. However, Dalai Lama has made a statement, and in his latest statement, he says that only his office, known as Gaden Phodrang Trust, will have the authority to name his successor. What to expect from this? To talk more, I have Tenzin Lekshay, official spokesperson of Central Tibetan Administration, with us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today, and thanks for joining us at Federal. So, my first question to you is that what message does this announcement send to Tibetans inside Tibet, especially that they have been asking and appealing for the continuation of this institution?
So now I'll give you backgrounds, right, Shweta? So when we talk about His Holiness Dalai Lama, right, in old days, we used to say that His Holiness belongs to Tibetan people, right? Now, after His Holiness came into exile, right, His Holiness belongs to the world, right? So therefore, when you look at the statement by His Holiness today, it's a gracious moment for not just for the Tibetans inside and outside of Tibet, but for the people, the Buddhist followers from Himalayan regions, Mongolia, Russian federations, even in China, right? Because they have repeatedly requested His Holiness, appealed His Holiness over so many years that the institution should continue, the Dalai Lama institution should continue. So,
Yes.
His Holiness today, His Holiness has graciously, right, accepted it, and then told that the institution will continue. So this is the joyous moment for us, not just because His Holiness we are celebrating the 90th birthday of His Holiness, right?
Yes, yes.
But also
Yeah.
that statement has come forward by fulfilling the ultimate desire of every being, the followers of His Holiness, that His Holiness has accepted to continue the institution of Dalai Lama. So it's a joyous moment for us.
Right. I mean, also, like, how does His Holiness view China's claim that its approval is required for Dalai Lama's reincarnation and it should be done in China itself?
Where in the historical record says that China has the authority on the reincarnation of His Holiness? Where? This is a unique Buddhist tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, right? This is a unique traditions of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition.
Right.
And if you look at China, the regime right now who have been occupying Tibet for the last 70 years, first thing, since this is the Buddhist tradition, someone of a follower of Buddhism should be involved,
Right.
right? So China, the Chinese regime, they do not believe in religion. Not that they do not believe in religion, but they are the oppressor and destroyer of faiths. So over the last 70 years, right, we know that 6,000 monasteries, Tibetan monasteries, were being destroyed. Tibetan monks and nuns were being tortured, killed, and even now having possessing the photo of His Holiness, just a photo of His Holiness. China imprisoned many monks, nuns, and lay people who were devoted to His Holiness Dalai Lama. Right? China being the oppressor of the Tibetan Buddhism, how can they have a legitimacy, right,
Right.
to recognize His Holiness Dalai Lama? One thing.
Right.
Second thing, historically, as you said, but we have a long history of the incarnation of His Holiness. This is the 14th Dalai Lama. Right?
Right.
All
Yeah.
14, right,
Yeah.
have gone through the Tibetan Buddhist traditions. without any interference from the Chinese government.
Hmm.
Right? China
Yeah.
says right now that they have the authority, and only thing they should do is using the golden urn. Where was it written? Right? Where was the history? If you look
Right.
at
Right.
the 14, the present Dalai Lama, the golden
Hmm.
urn was not used. If you go
Hmm.
to the 13th Dalai Lama, the golden urn was not used. If you go to 5th Dalai Lama, it was not used. So it was a mere manipulation of the history and the culture simply to fulfill their political interest.
Right.
Right? It was not in console with the Buddhist traditions, but it is purely a political need that they want to introduce or they want to occupy and interfere in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So nowhere that
Hmm.
China has a role to play. So therefore, His Holiness, not just in this statement, but
Hmm.
in earlier statements also, has stated that the
Hmm.
authority lies only in His Holiness, and he
Right.
has vested that authority to his office, that is Gaden Phodrang Trust. So China's involvement, right,
Hmm.
has been created by Chinese themselves, who are
Hmm.
oppressed, who were not at all in belief of the faith.
Hmm. Hmm.
They do not have any legitimacy. How
Right.
much
Right.
ever they tried, how much
Hmm.
ever they tried, they do not have any authority per se
Correct.
on this incarnation.
Hmm. Hmm. Sir, now that we talk about reincarnation, can you clarify how Dalai Lama's decision to have his successor born outside China, that how can that be practically ensured?
See, His Holiness, right, all through time has also stated that as being a leader of Tibetan people, now as a spiritual leader of the Tibetan people, His Holiness has repeatedly stated that if the Tibetan situation remain unchanged, His Holiness will be born in the free world, not in China, not inside China.
Correct.
Now,
Okay.
when China persists that the Dalai Lama should be born in China,
China.
and
Hmm.
His Holiness has repeatedly stated that if the situation remains unchanged. Now, if you look at Tibet, the current
Hmm.
Tibet, the situation is more than ever critical. Right? We are facing an existential threat by the Chinese regime. So
Right.
how could it be possible
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
that the Dalai Lama will be born in Tibet or in China?
Right. Right. I mean, you pointed out the oppression.
So
Uh,
therefore, it's very logical. And His Holiness has consistently stated that he has the authority and he can choose where he should be, not just for the sake of the Tibetan people, but for the well-being of every human being. Right?
right.
So if he being oppressed, then how can he be able to serve others?
True.
Right? So therefore, if His Holiness will be born in free world, it is more likely that His Holiness will be able to serve the larger humanity. Right?
Hmm.
So nowhere China has a role to play, and His Holiness is the sole legitimate authority on
Right.
the tradition of Dalai Lama.
Hmm. So now that we are talking about identifying the successor, is the Dalai Lama or the trust open to any conversation, any dialogue with the Chinese authorities regarding the whole process of succession?
Why should we?
Hmm.
Why should the Gaden Phodrang Trust has to negotiate and reconcile with the Chinese regime? As I said
Right.
before, the regime itself is a non-believer. Regime
Mm.
itself is a destroyer of the faith.
Mm.
Then this is a Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Why should we have to negotiate with someone who is not within the jurisdiction of the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, not within the paradigm of the Tibetan Buddhist traditions? Right.
Right.
So because see, China's interest, as I said before, is all about political interest, right? Not in favor
Right.
of the Buddhist traditions. But
Hmm.
therefore, there's nowhere that we have to negotiate with the Chinese regime. We have to
Hmm.
go with the practice which we have followed throughout, right?
Right. 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 So identifying the next successor, it has a very big cultural significance for the Tibetan culture, and like you rightly pointed out, it's a moment of joy for Tibetan in Tibet or throughout the world. How what does it mean to the Tibetan culture having the successor identification and the whole reincarnation process?
See, it is not just the whole existence of the Dalai Lama. It's not just about
Mm.
culture. His Holiness is a symbol of Tibet. His
Right.
Holiness is a savior of Tibetan people. His Holiness, being a manifestation of Lord of compassion, is
Mm.
a local guardian of Tibet.
Mm.
He's been
Right.
there, involved with Tibetan people throughout the evolution. It is
Mm.
not just about culture, right? It's about
Mm.
everything about people, right? So
Right.
therefore, see, we have been right
Mm.
obeying His Holiness, right?
Mm.
That
Mm.
the institution Dalai Lama should continue. And today, His Holiness has
Mm.
graciously accepted that this institution will continue because of overwhelming, right, request
Mm.
deals
Yeah.
in
Yeah. Yeah.
throughout the years from all over the world, not just Tibetan people inside and outside of Tibet, but
Right. Yeah.
for
Mm.
Tibetans. But
Mm.
for Tibetans, yes, we are committed, but we are determined, we are resilient, but
Mm.
I will do anything. But
Right.
what they do not have is the truth, right?
Right.
We
Mm.
have, no matter how small we might be, we
Mm.
have a truth. That's what we prevailed over the last 70 years.
Right.
So China cannot do anything.
Mm-hmm. Sir, now that we know that the trust is planning on on identifying the successor and the whole reincarnation ceremony, what steps are being taken by the trust to ensure that there is transparency and legitimacy in identifying the next Dalai Lama?
See, we are not in hurry. His
Okay.
Holiness has just stated that the Dalai Lama
Mm.
institution will continue. The process
Right.
has not yet begun. Why should it begin now? Because we have His Holiness, the presence of the 14th, and His Holiness throughout over the last many decades has said that His Holiness will live for 113 years old. As per the request of the Tibetan people and all the followers of His Holiness. When His
Right.
Holiness has promised to live over 100 years,
Mm.
why should we but we hurry
Mm-hmm.
the process? No, but we will enjoy the moment of the presence of His Holiness, the present Dalai Lama,
Right.
right, and being showered under His radiance of love, compassion, peace, non-violence, right, and reconciliations. So
Right.
we are not in
Right.
it. We will live with joy with the present Dalai Lama, right? And then at one point of time, yes, His Holiness will tell us what to do. Then we will follow that, right?
Right. Right.
The process
Sir, yeah.
has not yet started. But His Holiness made it clear today also that the Gaden Phodrang Trust, who has been authorized, who's been entrusted, will consult with the High Lamas, because High Lamas are also believers of the faith, right?
Yeah.
And Also, the oath-bound protectors. We also look for protectors for consultations, future consultations. So we have done us as per our Buddhist traditions, and we will also do in the future. That's what in this statement today is also said that the Gaden Phodrang
Right.
Trust will consult with the High Lamas and the oath-bound protectors in the future.
Okay. Okay, sir. So as we conclude, I would just want to know, like, what are the plans for the 90th birthday, and do we see any announcements or any statements coming being made on that day?
See, we are celebrating the life and legacy and contribution of His Holiness Dalai Lama over
Okay.
the last 90 years. Right. This year, in celebration of the 90th birthday of His Holiness, we have earmarked a whole year as the year of compassion. There will be celebration all over the world by the
Right.
followers of His Holiness, right? The Tibetans, the Buddhist communities, right? And all those people who love His Holiness will celebrate the 90th birthday of His Holiness. In Dharamsala, on 6th, we'll have an official ceremony, right? And the celebration of His Holiness 90th birthday. On 5th, one day before, we have long life prayer, but by the Kashak, by the cabinet, on behalf of all the Tibetans, but
Okay.
to be offered to His Holiness long life puja, prayers, ceremony. So there are many more events coming throughout the years to celebrate the life, legacy, and contribution of His Holiness, right?
Right.
And that
Okay.
compassion to
Right.
all, which is needed at this difficult time.
Right. So thank you so much for joining us at Federal and talking to us in detail about the reincarnation process of the next Dalai Lama. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shweta, for giving me opportunity. Thank you. It's a pleasure.